This happened last summer when I was trying to settle into my new life. I was 32 years old and pretty much a city guy. I thought I could focus on my work in the quiet of the countryside. The farmhouse was old and a bit run down, but I felt a kind of charm in its creaks and groans. I had hoped the peaceful setting would help my writing flow, but something felt off. I've never stopped thinking about it. One day, I decided to explore the sprawling cornfield behind the house. The corn stood tall and golden under the sun. I took slow walks among the rows, trying to connect with the beauty of the land. Then I heard it, a rustling sound that seemed out of place. At first, I thought maybe it was just the corn shifting in the wind. But the sound was different, like something, or someone, was moving through the field. I tried to dismiss it, but a shiver ran down my spine. I knew I had to investigate. Over the next few days, I heard the rustling again, along with strange whispers that danced on the breeze. I wasn't sure if my imagination was playing tricks, but I felt drawn to the sounds. I could have ignored it, but the whispers felt like they were calling me, urging me to understand what was happening. My heart raced each time the noises resumed. I thought maybe I had upset something in the fields or caught the attention of the townsfolk who watched me from a distance. Then, I noticed patterns in those whispers. At first, they were just murmurs. Gradually, they began to form words. I could have sworn I heard my name once, faintly but distinctly. My palms got sweaty. I pushed myself to venture deeper into the cornfield, trying to see where those sounds were coming from. That's when I saw them. At the edges of my vision, there were shadowy figures darting between the stalks. I rubbed my eyes, thinking they were tricks of the light, but they didn't go away. I tried to rationalize everything because maybe I was just exhausted. But those figures were persistent. I felt like they were watching me, waiting for something. Fear settled over me each time I returned to the field. Then one evening, the whispers became louder, almost demanding. My pulse quickened, and I felt cold sweat on my back. I turned around, facing the rows, desperate to ask whoever or whatever was there, "What do you want?" But there was only silence, a heavy, suffocating silence. Then, with every ounce of courage, I stepped forward. I shouted into the growing dusk, "What do you want?" A voice, broken and crackling, replied, "Why are you here?" I spun around, my heart racing, but nobody was there. The cornfield felt alive, and I realized I may never find the answers I sought. I stumbled back, my eyes darting between the rows, and the whispers became a deafening chorus. I was not alone, but I didn't know what they wanted. I turned and ran, feeling the weight of the watching figures behind me. I left the field that day, but the whispers never left my mind. When I got home, I tried to shake off the feeling of dread that clung to me. I made a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, hoping the warmth would calm my nerves. But every creak of the old house felt amplified, and even the wind outside carried whispers that sent chills down my spine. The next day, I decided to take a break from writing. I needed to clear my head. So, I headed into town, thinking that some distance from the farmhouse might help. The people I encountered seemed friendly enough, but there was an undercurrent of wariness in their eyes when they spoke to me. I noticed them exchanging glances when I shared that I lived alone at the old farmhouse. Feeling unwelcome, I asked an older man at the hardware store about the cornfields. "Strange things happen out there," he warned, his voice low. He wouldn't elaborate, which only fueled my growing unease. I started to wonder if everyone knew something I didn't. Back at the farmhouse, the summer sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the field. I felt the pull of the cornfield again, but this time, it felt different. It was darker. With my heart racing, I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The air was thick with tension as I approached the edge of the corn. The whispers returned, sharper and more insistent. I took a deep breath and moved cautiously between the rows. The flashlight beam flickered across the stalks, revealing nothing but the rustling of leaves. Then, I spotted something unusual. A small object lay in the dirt, half hidden amongst the weeds. Curiosity piqued, I knelt to get a better look. It was a weathered pendant, tarnished yet intricately designed, depicting a figure I didn't recognize. My gut twisted. I felt as though I had unearthed something significant, but I couldn't quite put my finger on why. As I stood back up, I heard it. A voice, clearer than before, broke through the whispers. "You shouldn't be here." My heart dropped. There was no mistake this time. I wasn't alone. The air grew heavy again, as if the cornfield itself was bearing down on me. I spun around, the flashlight illuminating the rows, but again there was nothing. "Who are you?" I called out, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Silence echoed back. I could feel the prickling sensation of unseen eyes watching me. I clutched the pendant tightly, unsure if I should run or try to communicate. Then, as if responding to my fear, the whispers crescendoed into a howl. "Leave!" they screamed, a chorus of voices that felt like a warning. Panicked, I turned on my heel and stumbled back, the oppressive energy of the field chasing me. I made it home, breathless and shaken. The pendant lay heavy in my pocket, a reminder of what I had uncovered and what I still didn't understand. The whispers were no longer just in my head. They were real, and they angered something deeper in the field. If I wanted to put this to rest, I knew I had to return. But I also understood now. I was walking into something much darker than I had ever imagined. The next morning, the sunlight filtering through my curtains almost felt mocking. I had slept fitfully, haunted by the whispers and the face on the pendant. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had crossed a line, and I needed answers. Determined, I decided to visit the town library. It was a small place, filled with old books and dusty corners, but I hoped it held some clues. I found a reference librarian, a middle-aged woman with a cautious smile. "What can I help you with?" she asked, though I could sense her hesitation when I mentioned the cornfields. "I was wondering if you have any history about the land around here, or, local legends?" I tried to sound casual, but her expression hardened slightly. "Legends, yes. People talk." She nodded slowly. "It's better to let sleeping dogs lie, you know?" That only made my curiosity grow stronger. I pushed her for more. After a long moment, she relented. "Many years ago, something happened there. People went missing in the corn during the harvest. They say the fields took them." Her voice lowered to a whisper, as if the very walls could hear. "Since then, no one ventures there after dark." My stomach twisted. I pressed her for details, but she clammed up. I left feeling frustrated, but with a few names of older residents who might know more. Back at the farmhouse, I was restless. The pendant sat on the kitchen table, glistening in the afternoon sun. I picked it up, tracing the figure with my fingers. Why did it feel so familiar? I had to dig deeper. That night, I returned to the cornfield. I was scared, of course, but I felt it was the only way to gather more information. Instead of my flashlight, I brought a small flashlight and a notebook. I wanted to document everything, just in case something happened. The whispers were there again as I stepped in. They felt less threatening tonight, almost like they were guiding me. I moved forward, determined to find some answers. I recalled the librarian's words and thought to voice my thoughts aloud. "What happened here?" I called out into the darkness. Suddenly, the air shifted. I got the unmistakable feeling that I was being watched. This time, it wasn't just whispers. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall silhouette half hidden among the stalks. My heart raced at the sight. "Who are you?" I shouted, hoping the figure was just a figment of my fear. "Leave," it breathed, the voice raspy, tinged with sadness and anger. My breath hitched in my throat. I realized this was no ordinary encounter. And then, as quickly as it appeared, the figure turned and ran deeper into the field. My instincts kicked in. I couldn't let this chance slip away. I followed, hoping to uncover the truth behind what lurked in the corn. I pushed myself forward, ignoring the rising terror in my chest. But with every step I took, I felt the ground shift beneath me. And suddenly, everything went dark. I jolted awake, my heart racing. The darkness surrounded me. I wasn't sure how long I'd been out. My flashlight flickered feebly before going out completely, leaving me in a suffocating blackness. Panic surged through me. I reached for my notebook, but it felt damp and heavy in my hands. Where was I? I listened intently for any sounds. The whispers were gone. All I could hear was the rustling of corn leaves against each other. I swallowed hard and tried to remember how I had gotten here. I had been following the figure, but now it felt like I had wandered in circles. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. The word hung in the air, answering only with silence. Fear coiled in my stomach like a serpent. I took a cautious step forward, feeling the uneven ground beneath my feet. Then I heard it, a low, mournful whisper, almost like a lament. "Turn back." It wasn't just in my head. This voice felt real, and I could almost see the shape of the figure shimmering in the distance. "Wait!" I shouted, feeling emboldened. "I just want to know what happened here." I took another step, moving towards the sound. The field around me seemed to shift. The tall stalks of corn loomed overhead, and I could feel the air grow heavier. I felt as though unseen hands were gripping me, urging me to stop. And that's when I saw it. A faint glow flickered between the rows, like a lantern in the distance. I squinted, my pulse quickening. What could it be? Could it be the figure from before? I hesitated, the glow beckoning. I knew I should turn back, but the urge to uncover the truth was stronger than my fear. I pushed onward, drawn to the light. As I approached, a chill swept through the air. The glow intensified, revealing an old rusted pendant hanging from a thorny vine. It looked just like mine, but darker, more aged. I couldn't believe it. How had it ended up here? Reaching out, I brushed my fingers over it. Suddenly the ground beneath me shook violently, as if the earth itself was reacting to my touch. I stumbled back, heart pounding wildly in my chest. Then, the whisper cut through the air again, louder this time. "Leave. Before it's too late." I turned to run, panic flooding my senses. But the cornfields felt different now. It was as if they twisted into a maze before my eyes. I couldn't find my way out. The whispers returned, rising to a fevered pitch, surrounding me like a storm. That's when I heard another voice. Not a whisper, but a scream echoing through the fields. "Help!" It was a plea filled with despair. And for the first time, it didn't belong to me. I froze. Who was out here with me? There was no other soul for miles, or so I thought. "What's happening?" I breathed, terror creeping into my bones. But behind me, shadows shifted again, and I felt less alone than I had moments before. This time, they weren't just whispers. They were starting to coalesce, forming shapes in the dark. I needed to get out. Now. With desperation coursing through me, I bolted through the corn, hoping to outrun whatever was coming for me. I had to escape, but the flickering glow followed me, relentless and haunting. And as I pushed through the stalks, I realized I was no longer sure which way was back. I crashed through the corn, my breath ragged. The whispers swirled around me, echoing in my ears. Each rustle of the leaves felt like a warning, urging me to stop. But I couldn't. I didn't want to see what was behind me. As I stumbled deeper into the field, the air shifted. The presence behind me felt tangible, like a weight bearing down. I didn't dare look back. I tried to focus, to remember the way I came, but the corn seemed to be alive, growing thicker, like it was trying to swallow me whole. Then, the scream came again, more intense, a sound unlike anything I had ever heard. It sent chills down my spine. "Help!" The voice was desperate, raw. It cut through the haze of fear surrounding me. "Where are you?" I shouted. But my voice barely rose above the cacophony of whispers. My heart raced as I fumbled along the stalks, my fingers grazing their rough surfaces. Maybe if I could just find another path, I could escape whatever I had unleashed. Suddenly, ahead of me, I saw a figure. It stood still amongst the rows, shrouded in darkness. Was it the same figure I had been following? I hesitated, fear gripping me again. But the plea echoed once more, this time settling into my bones. "Please. I need help." I forced myself to move toward the figure, my instincts screaming at me to stay back. "I'm coming," I called, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. As I got closer, the figure illuminated a bit, and I could see the outline of a person, a woman, her arms reaching out, as though she sought to pull me into safety. Just as I was about to reach her, the ground cracked again, and I stumbled. The earth beneath me opened up, creating a small pit. I gasped but managed to catch myself at the edge. "No!" I yelled, instinctively gripping the nearest stalk for support. The figure turned sharply, revealing a face twisted in anguish. "You can't touch it!" she cried, her voice now a desperate sob. "It will take you!" "Take me where?" I shouted. But I couldn't make sense of it. Panic surged through me again, mixing with the stifling heat of dread. It felt like the air was closing in, suffocating. I couldn't stay here. A surge of adrenaline propelled me forward, past the figure, trying to avoid the pit that now felt like a gaping maw ready to swallow me. But the whispers morphed into a frenzy, the sounds almost screaming in anguish. "Turn back! Turn back!" Just then, as if the darkness itself had eyes, I saw something shift among the corn. A dark shape moved at the edge of my vision, darting closer, its form indistinct, but something primal in me told me it wasn't friendly. "We have to go!" I screamed at the figure, hoping she'd turn and run with me. But as I glanced back, she had vanished. I was alone again in the darkness. My heart pounded. The shape loomed closer. Whatever it was hungry. With every ounce of my strength, I turned and sprinted. I had to get out of this nightmare. My pulse quickened, not knowing if I was running toward freedom or deeper into danger. And then, as I pushed through the final row of corn, a horrifying realization struck. I wouldn't find escape. The field had no end. The corn seemed to stretch endlessly before me, a vast sea of green that twisted and turned into shadows. I felt like I was trapped in a maze with no exit. My mind raced as panic settled in. I had to find something, anything, that could guide me out of this nightmare. Behind me, the whispers grew louder. They filled my ears, a chaotic mix that buzzed like angry bees. "Help me, please." The voice was back, pulling me closer to the darkness I had escaped in my mind. I pressed my hands against my ears, trying to drown it out, but it only intensified. Focused on finding a way out, I stumbled forward, each step guided by desperation. I could feel the weight of whatever hunted me just behind, its presence palpable. Glancing over my shoulder was out of the question. I couldn't risk losing what little momentum I had. Up ahead, something caught my eye. A small clearing in the corn, almost luminous in the dimness. As I hurried toward it, praying to the universe for a miracle, my foot caught on something hidden beneath the leaves. I tumbled to the ground, my palms scraping against the rough dirt as I tried to steady myself. "Get up," I murmured to myself. I couldn't let fear win. I pushed against the earth, rising to my knees, and that's when I saw it. Lying beside me was a small metal object, glinting in the trickle of fading light. I picked it up, its surface cool and solid in my palm. It was a compass, battered but readable. "Okay, this is something," I whispered, my heart racing just a bit slower now. I aimed it north, praying it still worked. Without wasting another second, I pointed it toward what I hoped was a way out of the field. But just as I stood, a sudden chill swept through the air. The whispers morphed into a chant, rhythmic and demanding. The words twisted in my mind, a language I couldn't understand but felt drawn in by. I took a step toward the direction the compass pointed, but the earth trembled again beneath me. The ground opened further, a shallow crevice appearing as if the corn itself was alive, shifting to keep me from moving. "No, not again!" I yelled, fighting against the pull of the earth. I couldn't let it drag me down. Utilizing every ounce of my strength, I pushed away from the pit, struggling to keep my balance. The dark shape was closer now, creeping between the stalks, its form finally coming into focus. It was tall, impossibly angular, and its eyes glowed like embers in the night. Fear surged through me, hot and electric. Whatever it was, I knew it was the source of the screams. It had lured me here, and I had to escape its grip. Then, unexpectedly, the whispers quieted, falling to a hushed anticipation. They seemed to be waiting for something, a moment of dread hanging thick in the air. Then, through the silence, came a raspy voice that echoed across the clearing. "Do you really think you can leave?" That single question hung in the air like a blade, sharp and menacing. I felt it pierce through me, but I couldn't afford to stay still. I took another step backward, still clutching the compass, my hands trembling. I needed to move, to run, to do anything but face the figure slipping through the shadows. And then, just as I turned to bolt into the cover of the corn, my fingers brushed something else. Another warm body, hidden and breathing against the corn's thickness. My heart dropped. I wasn't alone. "Help!" I gasped, but the darkness surged as the figure dashed past me, leaving me stunned and scared. The whispers returned, this time louder, urging me to follow. "You can't escape what's already inside you." I hesitated for just a moment, uncertainty freezing me in place. But whatever was out there wasn't waiting. I had to run, even if I was running into the unknown again. I darted into the corn, my heart pounding in my chest. The rustling stalks swallowed me up, their sharp leaves brushing against my skin like 1,000 tiny fingers. I didn't stop to think. The compass was still clutched tightly in my grip, its needle spinning wildly now, as if it were a nervous thing. "Stay together, stay together," I whispered to myself, trying to steady my breath. I pushed forward, forcing my legs to move through the thick vegetation. The whispers danced around me once more, their urgency dragging me deeper. Then, without warning, a loud snap echoed through the air, followed by another. I froze, every nerve in my body on high alert. Something was breaking through the corn. My instincts screamed at me to keep moving, but I was rooted in place, paralyzed by dread. There it was again, that figure, slipping closer between the tall stalks. I squinted, trying to make out its details. I could feel its presence shifting, weaving closer, almost like it was playing a game. "Run!" A voice suddenly emerged from the depths of the corn, one that matched the warm body from before. My stomach twisted as I realized it wasn't just my mind. Someone else was here. "It's coming for you! Who are you?" I shouted, the words barely escaping my throat. "Where are you?" But no answer came, only more rustling. The compass beeped sharply, and my vision blurred for a split second as a chill crept up my spine. I looked down to see the needle finally settle, pointing resolutely toward the left. I had to follow it. It had to mean something. "Please, just help me," I called out, my voice shaky. But the figure was closer now, and I could see a glimmer of those ember-like eyes, locked onto me. I turned and sprinted to the left, praying that whatever fate awaited me was better than the terror nipping at my heels. Running in the corn twisted my senses. I had no idea if I was going in circles or making progress. I lost track of the chanting, but the air swirled with an electric tension. Every so often I felt the presence right behind me, close enough to touch. And every instinct told me to scream, but I couldn't afford that. Cripes, what if it answered? Then I saw it. A faint shimmer at the edge of the field, like a break in the maze of green. Perhaps it was an exit, maybe a glimpse of safety. I pushed harder, faster, the stalks whipping against me. But just as I was about to reach it, the ground lurched again. The earth trembled threateningly, sending me stumbling backward into the corn. I barely regained my footing when the whispers surged back, louder and more insistent. "Turn around!" they howled. "You have to go back!" I stopped in my tracks, my hands gripping the compass like a lifeline. All the energy around me shifted, and the weight of 1,000 gazes bore down upon me. What do they want? Who were they? In that instant, the familiar raspy voice returned, now dripping with malice. "You thought you could just leave?" That was when everything went black. The world fell silent, every sound stolen from the air, and my heart plummeted into an abyss of uncertainty. What now? I woke with a start, gasping for air. The world around me was dark, but unlike before, it felt colder, almost lifeless. I was lying flat on my back in the cornfield, the stalks now standing still, like silent sentinels. Panic surged through me as I pushed myself up, brushing away the dirt and debris from my clothes. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. There was no answer, just the faint crunch of the corn as I shifted. I felt around, searching for my compass, and it was right there, still clenched in my fist. The needle was steady, but now pointed straight down. What did it mean? Should I dig? I had no idea where I was or how long I had been out. I could still feel that presence lurking somewhere nearby. My instincts told me to move again, but I had lost any sense of direction. The singing whispers were gone, replaced instead by an eerie silence that seemed to swallow the light from above. Then I heard it, a low growl, a raspy sound that slithered through the air. My heart raced again, pounding hard against my ribcage. I scanned the area, hoping for any sign of life. Just as I was about to stand, the ground trembled beneath me again. Was the presence an illusion? Something my mind had conjured in the depths of fear? I dared not believe it. I remembered the ember-like eyes, the malice dripping from that voice. Focus. I had to think straight. A movement caught my eye. Something shifted in the shadows of the corn, blinking in and out of view. I held my breath, feeling the weight of the air around me thickening with dread. "Is someone there?" I shouted, my voice echoing back. The response was swift. A rustling that grew louder, scratching at the leaves like nails against a chalkboard. I scrambled up to my feet, adrenaline sharpening my sense. I had to move. I ran blindly into the corn again, the compass clutched tight. This time I didn't focus on its needle. I trusted my instincts, the nagging feeling that I was being hunted. I could feel the heat radiating from whatever was lurking behind me. With every step, the growl followed, dark and menacing. Just as I was about to step into an opening in the corn, something flashed by me, something glimmering. I stopped dead, squinting through the shadows. That shimmer, it was different. Not just a break in the corn, but a reflection. Something metallic. I stumbled toward it, but the ground shook harder. The whispers returned, louder now, urging uncertainty. "You shouldn't be here," they cried. I froze again, glancing back. There was darkness behind me, but the glimmer caught my full attention. What was it? I stepped closer, heart hammering. That's when I saw it. A jagged piece of metal emerged from the ground, partially buried in dirt. It was old, rusted, and twisted. But right beside it, a familiar shape. My compass. A second compass, almost identical, except its needle pointed erratically. I could feel the weight of their presence closing in. My time was running out. I had to make a choice. So just as I reached for the second compass, desperation clawed at me. I could hear the growl drawing closer. Suddenly, something burst forth from the corn, a figure cloaked in darkness and brimming with rage. It lunged toward me. My heart raced. I had to escape, but the ground swayed beneath my feet, and in that instant, my world began to tilt again. I stumbled backward, adrenaline surging through my veins as the figure loomed closer, a dark silhouette against the pale moonlight. I watched helplessly as it reached out a shadowy arm, fingers elongated and clawed. Panic gripped me. I had to move, but my feet felt like they were glued to the ground. In a frantic burst, I turned and sprinted away, the second compass forgotten in the dirt. My heart thundered in my chest, drowning out the growl that now sounded like thunder crashing through the air. I could barely make out the corn rows beside me, the stalks closing in like prison bars. The air felt thick, suffocating. I pushed through the corn, branches slapping against my face. Every step felt like it led me deeper into an abyss. Just when I thought I had gained some distance, the dark figure emerged from the shadows. It darted through the rows with an unnatural speed, a predator toying with its prey. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I could feel its presence behind me, an invisible weight that pulled at my very being. I had to find a way out. There had to be an end to this maze. I glanced left and saw a glimmer of light. Could it be a way out? I pushed harder, ignoring the thorns that grabbed at my clothes. Each rustle around me felt amplified, as if the entire cornfield had become aware of my fear. Then, I heard something that froze me in place. "It's not safe! You can't hide!" The voice echoed, sharp and urgent, cutting through the silence. It was a voice I didn't recognize but felt familiar, somehow. I looked around, hoping to see someone there, someone to help me. Suddenly, the ground shook again, a violent tremor that toppled stalks around me. I stumbled, losing my footing. As I fell, I caught a glimpse of something, a flash of white, stark against the dark. It was another figure, distorted and flickering. I scrambled to my feet, the figures closing in, the dark one and the flickering one. I was trapped between them in a world that felt like it was collapsing around me. I felt small, weak. The flickering figure spoke again, but this time I could make out the words. "We're not enemies. We want to help. I hesitated. A part of me wanted to trust, but the other part, the one caught in survival, screamed for me to run. I looked back at the dark figure. It lunged, and I ducked instinctively, rolling behind a thick cluster of corn. A sudden rush of wind blew through the field, chilling me to the bone, and I felt the presence swirl around me. "Choose!" the flickering voice shouted. "Stay with it, or come with us!" In that moment of chaos, I spotted my compass lying there, glinting in the pale light, and a decision crystallized in my mind. I didn't know what waiting for the flickering figure would mean. But if I stayed in the corn, I felt certain my fate would be sealed by the shadow. I reached for the compass and scrambled toward where I had last seen the flickering figure, breath hitching. Just as I turned to escape, everything went dark. I could hear the growl building behind me, a storm of rage and hunger closing in. All eyes on me now. I had no idea how much time had passed since I lost consciousness on the ground, but when I came to, my surroundings felt different. I was standing under a vast night sky, cool air brushing against my skin. The cornfield was gone, replaced by an empty expanse leading to distant hills and looming trees. The shadows that had haunted me in the corn had either retreated or transformed. I wasn't sure which was worse. "Hello?" I called, my voice raw from fear. The echoes of my voice hung in the air, swallowed by the stillness around me. I turned slowly, half expecting the dark figure to emerge from the shadows. But instead, there was nothing but silence. My breath caught as I felt the weight of uncertainty settle over me. Where had the field gone? What had happened to me during that blackout? I glanced down, realizing my hands were clean and free of dirt. Yet my heart still raced as if I were in the depths of the chaos. "What was that place?" I whispered. The memory of the voices and shadows was etched into my mind, but the tension had eased. I was alive, at least. For now, that was enough. A distant sound pulled me from my thoughts, a rustle in the underbrush. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I sensed it wasn't the haunting presence I feared. However, I prepared myself just in case. I followed the sound cautiously, moving toward a narrow path flanked by tall, gnarled trees. As I moved, the questions buzzed in my mind. Had I really escaped? Had I freed myself from whatever hunted me? I could still feel those dark eyes lingering, as if they were watching from the edges of the past. I paused at the edge of the path, glancing back at the emptiness behind me. The cornfield wasn't just a memory. It felt alive in the recesses of my mind. Suddenly, a figure emerged ahead. A silhouette stepped into view, illuminated by a soft, ethereal light. My heart raced at the familiar outline. It was the flickering presence. "You're safe now," it said, its voice calming yet laced with an urgency I couldn't ignore. "But you were close." "Close to what?" I asked, trying to catch my breath, still on edge. Was it real? The cornfield? The shadows? Did I escape them? The figure nodded, a gentle affirmation of my frantic thoughts. "You faced what lies beneath. You discovered pieces of the past, and the danger hasn't vanished. It remains. Hungry." Words spun in my head, and I struggled to process them. I had journeyed through the field, encountered shadows and whispers. Yet as I looked around, the eerie weight of the night still clung to me. "What do I do now?" "You must choose," it said, stepping closer, a twinge of sorrow in its gaze. "You can continue to confront the shadows, or walk away, leaving behind the past and the truth that calls from deep within." I felt a stirring within, an echo of the voices pleading for help. Was it all just a figment of my fear? Or had I tapped into something profound, something beyond my comprehension? Uncertainty uncoiled inside me. Would walking away mean abandoning those still lost in the cornfields? For a moment, everything felt still, imbued with weighty silence. Then, as if sensing my conflict, the figure pressed on. "You faced something greater. But the resolution lies in understanding. What was lost in the corn? What still lingers?" A chill fluttered down my spine. I ached with the need for closure, for answers. But as I stared into those flickering eyes, I understood that my curiosity could drag me back into something dark and consuming. I don't want to go back, I finally murmured, the words barely escaping my lips. But I'm afraid. Fear is but one part of the journey. It connects you to possibility. As the figure spoke, I could see its form begin to shimmer, blending with the soft light that surrounded it. In that moment, I felt caught. The darkness and the calmness tugged at my heart, an unspoken battle raging within me. You must decide before dawn breaks. The corn will always be there, waiting. And then, before I could utter another word, the figure faded, leaving me standing alone on that narrow path, cloaked by an uncertain night. I took a deep breath, heart racing as questions swirled in my mind. Had I truly escaped? Or had I just taken a step deeper into whatever lay beyond? With a heavy heart, I turned down the path, unsure of where it led. All I knew was the whisper of a choice danced at the edges of my thoughts, one that promised the continuity of the mysteries that still lingered in the darkness, a connection to the shadows I'd dared to face. I moved forward, hoping to find the light again, though a part of me would always remain drawn to the field, its secrets lingering at the periphery of my mind.